So I am tying up probably my longest running streamer, and that is the articulated pool shark. And I've been tying this fly for probably about 7 years now. And like a ton of patterns have come and go since I started tying this fly, but this one has just stood the test of time for me. I mean, it's got everything I want out of a streamer. It's simple. It's a 2 material tie. It's easy and it's effective. And I mean, you can really go any direction you want, even though it has only 2 materials. I mean, you can embellish it all day long. I mean, I've created one version where I did obviously this is not contrasting, but I would tie in a contrasting little nub for the tail, and then I would tie in the primary zonker for the back. And I mean, you'd have basically what I was emulating with that originally was a chartreuse tail fluke, which is a soft plastic I've always loved. So don't let its simplicity dull down kind of the versatility of it, because ultimately it's just a very generic baitfish-y pattern. And yeah, I don't know, it's simple, it's effective, it works. So I've got a number 6 fulling mill streamer stripper in the vise. Got some 6/0 chartreuse thread. And first thing I'm going to do is tie in the rear stack. And I'm just doing this now because it's a lot easier to tie in without the zonker strip buggering up the area. So now, and with the stack, so I always tie it in forward of where I want it to, where I want the exposed portion to begin. And that just prevents me from needing to glue it or anything like that, because it's a slick material. Then if you just pin it to the hook shank, you really need to add glue, or else it'll pull free when it's just got the one band of thread securing it. Plus, doing it this way forces the fibers back. And now I am just going to tie in the zonker. This is just a regular size zonker strip. And just putting a handful of super tight controlled wraps. And I'm going to throw in a thread dam to just make sure those wraps stay put. Progress my thread forward. Again, I'm taking my thread farther past the point where I actually want the stack. So I am going to, so with these stacks, I like to fold it over the thread, but I don't just basically take it to a super acute angle and condense all the fibers. Like, I don't want to just pin them to the bottom. You can, because you can still flare them out, but I try to attach it with kind of a loose fold so that I can pin the stack of dubbing starting on this side of the hook shank and ending on the other side instead of pinning it all at once. So since I did pin it all at once, I'm just going to flatten it out. And this just helps you to cover up that thread body. And the cool thing with this is, since I'm going so sparse on the belly, the thread will be apparent. So I mean, you could use a white and it not be apparent, but this chartreuse will bleed through a little bit. So now before I put that final stack on, I go ahead and tie off the zonker, and this just helps me to get a cleaner head, because the zonker is the most cumbersome to tie off smoothly. So now I'm going to put in my last stack, and this one I really want to avoid that acute angle. So I'm just going to slide it up to the hook and basically just wedge the top of that fold in, and then I'm just going to bring it with me as I take my thread around. That was a bit too much. I got basically a whole veil on that one. Pin it to the side, and then just let it travel as I wrap my thread. And since I've already got my zonker tied, just gonna do a few thread wraps back, just to keep the thread head clean. And try to pull back any trash, any of those short fibers. And then whip it. Whip it good. If you use super glue, I mean, just whip it. Super glue's doing the work anyways. Alright, now I'm just going to give the belly a quick trim, since it's easier to do now when you don't have an additional hook. So I give it the initial cut, then I always like to just come in, and this is with any belly or head, and just give it a few staggering cuts to break up any straight lines that you might form. Okay, don't get caught up. I always do that. I always try to perfect it while it's in the vise, when all I got to do is take it out, and it's so much more workable. Not to mention, by the time I'm done with it, I will have done this probably about 7 times, only to do it again when I take it out of the vise. So there's one thing that's been super cool. I'm really not even sure how I came up with it. I don't know if it was inspired by somebody or what, but so I've been, whenever I'm tying streamers in batches, I've started using like a 12 to 18 inch piece of articulating wire and just going ahead and threading on all the beads that I'll need. So now all I've got to do is consciously remind myself to grab my bad scissors and then just drop the needed beads down, and bada bing, bada bang. Grab this so you don't drop it like I was about to do and spill all those beads. And then you just bite it. Or as I call it, you put it in your material clip. I really want to give my step-by-step instructions right now, but I'm going to refrain. Okay, so I've got a size 4 streamer stripper hook in the vise now, and a size medium brass eye. Which I don't have any preference, brass versus lead, but that's what Fooling Mill sells, so that's what I had bought. So I'm going to pin the wires on the shank and then make any adjustments. And this is a testament to how little you need glue. Like, I made 3 mediocre thread wraps, and I've got to really pinch down on this wire to shift it. And if I make any more thread wraps, there's nothing I can do because of the texture of the wire. Like, it would cut through my thread at that point if I did get it to shift. I'm just going to check the plane, or I don't know what you would call that, the inline-ness. So the wires did cross, and it does have a slight twist to it, so I'm just going to, which way does it need to go? No. I'm just going to take one wire and just roll it and pin it down, and you've just got to play with them to figure out which direction you need to roll it in. But that's it. And I don't know why, but I always take the connection down farther than most. I feel like it gives it a truer inlineness. Alright, and now I'm going to grab my bad scissors again. So like I said, I see no point in glue. I don't even see any point in folding it over. I do on website flies just because, but when this is my fly, I'm just cutting it off and keep on tying. That's a lie. This is the point I will throw a little bit of glue on, but that is mostly for the eyes. And that is only because I rarely use heavier than 6/0 thread. I just don't like GSP and never have gotten used to it. So now I'm going to add the skirt, or whatever you want to call it. And like the previous hook, I'm going to apply it before I add the zonker. And I do want this one as short as I can get away with, because this stuff, the Sculpen stacker, the polar or laser dub, it is super tangly, and the last thing I want is it to get all messed up in the trailing hook. And now I'm going to add the back. And I do really try hard to get the hide portion to end exactly on the thread head, just because it gives it really a seamless transition. And just repeat it one more time with that stack. This time larger than the previous 3. And so I don't know why it just occurred to me, but this literally crossed my mind before I began filming tonight. In the past, I've done 3 stacks, just like the previous hook, and then I tie in a head. Ugh. All right, I'm gonna add a little blue. And then I tie in a pretty thick head, and what occurred to me was how pointless that final stack is, because it is immediately followed with super dense stacks, and it's not really doing anything. So that is going to be, ooh, that got me good. That's going to be my last belly stack. And now I always cut that front zonker longer than I need, and this wasn't intentional, the hide, but I left it since I knew it would help and make pulling it tight that much easier. Then I just tie it off securely, make a few X wraps to cover up some of that hide, and add in my first head. It's not really a stack, it's more of a veil. So I'm going to just flatten it out pretty good, just lay it centered on the hook, roll it around, then take a loose wrap, one more, and then cinch upwards. Then do that a couple more times. And awkwardly try and evenly disperse that front veil. I'm just going to add a touch of glue, because like I said, when it's just that single thread band holding everything in, it can definitely slip on you. So now I'm going to do a veil, and I'm going to split it between the eye. I'm going to do the front right behind the eye. Okay. Then I'm just going to pull it around. And don't do that to me. Yeah, it don't matter. This is just a filler anyway. Is it to potentially fill in any of that gap that the eyes will create. And from here it varies. I don't necessarily have a formula for finishing the head. I may do one stack, I may do two, I may do two full and a final super sparse, but really just depends on how much hook shank I've got left behind the eye. And this will probably be two. So just repeat those same wraps. Then I just really pull it back hard, just to make sure it's A, secure, and B, just really force back to allow that stuff to get a fair amount of density. I mean, I'm not looking for a deer head, but I also don't want it to be super sparse where it's not going to hold that shape. So this final stack, something I've just started doing is cleaning it really well, because with this yarn, whenever you finish a fly with it, as you tie it in any other spot, you're going to be left with a ton of short hairs that are just, they're impossible to catch. And I typically resist this as much as I can because it feels like I'm wasting material. But I'm basically just going to grab the length I want and just brush it out to get all those shorties out. And then I'm going to get a little more because I forget how much it takes. The comb, that is. And what I am absolutely not going to do is put all of this back in the bag, because that's what I did every time in the past. And it didn't take many flies before the bag basically became just a bag of knotted up, too short to use fibers. All because I wanted to save like 80 cents in dubbing. And once I've got this cinched down, I'm going to make sure all of my thread wraps go rearward so that I don't run the risk of crowding the eye. And now I'm just going to, you know what, I'm not even fooling around with dispersing it. I'm just going to split it. Half top, half bottom. build up a thread head. Meant to check the time. This was actually one of the first tutorials I filmed when I decided to start to resume YouTube, since I refused to delete that initial video from like 7 years ago of that one nymph. But it was one of the first videos I recorded, and I think the edited version was like down to, or I got it down to like the mid 30-minute mark. And that's just too long for a 2-material tie. So I'm just gonna give it a quick comb. I think this just comes so naturally to me because this is very similar to the qualities of my own hair. So I'm really familiar with handling it. So I just pull all of the dubbing forward. I give it just a quick straight cut, and it's about, I just judge it by like basically a thumb pad past the eye, and then just give it a few little staggering cuts and brush it back. And when I figured that like just one cut head, that was a game changer. Because do not let me start sculpting a head. I will be here for an hour and a half, and there will be 0 dubbing left. And somehow I'll still be trimming. So just clearing out the eyes. Just a flush cut against the hook. Then pull it all back. Stick yourself a couple times with that rear hook. Stain it with just a touch of blood. Thankfully, this one didn't involve any bleeding thumbs. So yeah, that's it. It's just, I can't tell you how effective this fly has been for me. So that's it. You know, subscribe, like, follow, comment. I mean, preferably all of those things on my page, but whatever. Bye. Nailed it.